and welcome to a special edition of Rink Report here at the Washington Harbor. I'm Katie Florio, that is Tarik El-Bashir, and we have just had a wonderful night celebrating the career of TJ Oshie as he has officially announced his retirement, and a lot to get into with Oshie as a player, as a person. But first, Tarik, I want to start with how great this event was. Both props to Monumental and Capitals PR for the event that was put on. Fans coming in from all over, his family, his friends, former, current players all here for what was a very special evening.
Yeah, it was so awesome, Katie. And, you know, I'm not usually in favor of outdoor events in the summertime in Washington, D.C., but I'll make an exception for this one.
There's a little frizzy.
Because of where it is. I mean, I know you weren't covering the team back then, but in 2018, these guys were swimming in these fountains. I remember when I first saw it on social media, I was like, we had just gotten back from Vegas. We were all hungover. We were tired. We were beat down. It's a grueling run. And then you see these guys swimming in the fountains. I was like, I got to go. I got to go. And for TJ to announce his retirement just a few steps from this fountain, for me, and I think for a lot of the fans, and there were a lot of fans here, credit to them for coming out, it just kind of brought everything full circle, I think, for TJ. And like you said, it was a great event. A number of his teammates were here. Lars Eller, John Carlson, Nicholas Backstrom. I was kind of behind them, but I was looking to see, okay, who's crying? And there were some tears shed. There was a lot of emotion in this crowd.
There was, and rightfully so, both from TJ himself, his family, the fans, and you mentioned the fountain. Another thing I want to touch on, because it's pretty ironic, it was 7 years to the day here, June 9th.
The symbolism was everywhere. I love it.
Yeah. Opened that in his opening statement here, but he gave an incredible speech. A few times he had to stop, take a sip of his beverage for some of those tears that he shed. And like we said, there's so many special things to talk about from that speech. But one thing that stuck out was some of those players and those core players he talked about. Backstrom, Carlson, here with their families in the stands today. Of course, they
grew up together. Their kids grew up together. They became men. They became family men together. They all kind of live in the same area, went through the same trials and tribulations. TJ said they grieved together. They lost together, and they finally won together. That's a band. That's a bond that is never going to be broken. These guys are going to be coming back to anniversaries and celebrations here in D.C., reunions for years to come, and the stories are never going to get old. And to have some of those guys here, I thought that was just the icing on the cake, and it was just an outstanding event. And TJ, what really, really stood out to me was he didn't just thank his teammates and his coaches and the general manager who made the trade to bring him here. He gave all of them shout-outs. He also talked about all the guys behind the scenes that fans don't see, the equipment guys who are with the players, helping them get their skates and their sticks and all their stuff dialed in. They're working at 4 o'clock in the morning. They're there when the players are out to dinner. And I just love the fact that he singled those guys out because they're just such an important part of the fabric of this team.
Well, that, I think, encompasses who TJ Oshie is as a person. You can tell whether you've known him for 10 years or you've just met him, how well-liked he is and how his legacy goes far beyond the ice. And we'll get to what his future holds because I'm sure it's going to be successful. But first, Tarik, I want to talk about, you've been around this team for a long time. You have covered Oshie for a long time. What stand out as some of your favorite, most memorable on-ice Oshie moments?
There were so many. I would say the two that really jump out to me were, number one, I was lucky enough to be on the ice doing interviews after they won the Stanley Cup in Vegas. And, I'm kind of doing my interviews, and I could kind of feel like a crowd kind of gathering and like things happening behind me, a lot of cameras snapping. And I turned around right when TJ was embracing his father, who, unfortunately passed from Alzheimer's. He wasn't all there all the time back then, but you could tell in that moment he knew exactly what TJ had done. The Stanley Cup was theirs. It's something they had dreamed about doing since TJ was a little boy. And just to see the raw emotion of those two when they hugged, really something I'll never forget when I think of TJ Oshie. And the other thing was when he scored the hat trick in the first game after his father passed. That was just, a storybook kind of ending to that whole little episode there. Where, he was away from the team, then he was back, and then he just capped it off that hat trick. And I might have teared up a little bit. I think like a lot of people, it was amazing.
Absolutely. Well, like we said, there were certainly tears here today for an incredible guy, over 1,000 games, a Stanley Cup champion. And you mentioned his family, his father, obviously, rightfully so, his wife, his kids in this first row here, as proud and happy as can be. And he talked a lot now maybe of what's to come for life after hockey for TJ Oshie. Didn't say the specifics as what is to come, but certainly said he would love to be around this organization, loves to play with his kids, maybe, give them the time that they didn't have when he was on the road so much. But I think if you know him, he's going to find a way to still stay around the game, whether it's in broadcasting, just made his ESPN debut. Yeah. But I think there's still a lot of success to come in his life.
The world is his oyster, or whatever cliche you want to throw in there. I mean, good-looking guy in the prime of his life, well-spoken. If TV is what he wants to do, I watched him on that ESPN broadcast, and I was like, he's coming for my job, isn't he? But in all seriousness, you know what players who just stepped away from the game bring to television, and this is no knock on the guys who have been away from the game for a long time, but the guys who just stepped out of the arena, they still know the personnel. They're up to date on on systems and other things. When they talk about guys on the other team, they just played against those guys, and that's something that TJ could bring to the table if he so chooses. There are probably going to be some local opportunities for him in the broadcast sphere if he would like. He also founded War Road Apparel. That's something that I know is near and dear to him, and he wants to see that company really take off. I know it's made some big strides in recent years, but like you said, he also wants to be around for his kids. I mean, anybody who is on the road a lot, and I know you were in the playoffs, and I was for a long time as the Washington Post beat writer. You miss so much, and then when you come off the road, you just want to make up for that lost time. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if he does that first and then kind of stretches his legs in the business area or gets into television.
Well, an incredible career on the ice, but surely he has a legacy left to leave off of the ice. We're excited for what's to come for TJ Oshie and his family. But first, let's now take a quick look back at an incredible event.
During my time in sports broadcasting, I've had the good fortune to describe the play of many terrific athletes, their exploits, their efforts. I mean, they're awe-inspiring. But when it comes to the outstanding play of TJ Oshie, I just have to smile. It brings a smile to my face, just the thought of it. Him faking a goalie into next week, big smile. Him smashing a bigger player into the boards, or him leaping through the dressing room tunnel after warm-ups. You get the picture. Big smile, and we love TJ for it.
The ultimate warrior, the ultimate competitor, an engine that never stops is TJ Oshie, and that's why he's been a fan favorite ever since he arrived here in town.
In my younger years, my dad, along with the other coaches, would always put up a laminated quote on the door. The quote read, "Today I will give all I have, for this moment may never come again. Today I will give all I have, for this moment may never come again." That has always stuck with me because that is the only thing I've ever had full control over. No amount of skill, size, or speed could control how hard I worked and whether I could give 100% or not. That was only up to me. So to my family, friends, coaches, trainers, teammates, fans, and to the game of hockey, I promise you this. The moment my skates touched the ice, I gave you everything I had. With that, after 17 years in the NHL, I'd like to officially announce my retirement. Thank you.
Now that he's officially retired, what are your emotions like? You've been around him for so long.
Yeah, it's as emotional as he was getting, I was getting emotional as well. Like I said to someone else earlier this week, like I really feel like when he came in, that was a sea change for our organization. I mean, I think you look at the Langway trade as a trade that changed the course of our organization, our history, and I think the Oshie trade is right there with it. I don't think it's 1 and 2. I think they're both trades that change the trajectory of our organization.
Do you feel like he was the player or one of the players that kind of put you guys over the top?
Yeah, I think, every year we talk to Nick and Ovi, and we need a right wing. And, we constantly search to try and find the right guy for them. And, we thought we had a real good chance at Oshie, and that he was the perfect fit. Like he said before, when they put me in that spot on the power play, when they played with Nick and Ovi, he just lit up. He took his game to another level. So I think it was the perfect fit in the end. In hindsight, exactly what we hoped he'd be.
Off the ice as well as a great leader. Tom Wilson, remember him saying this year when he kind of assumed that bumper position on the power play.
Yeah.
He said Oshie would try and get off the ice a little early to give him a chance to get out there and get his feet wet. That to me said a lot about what TJ Oshie meant, not only on the ice but off it as well.
And that's going to be his legacy that carries on for years to come. Is Oshie was that type of teammate that he thought about his teammates. He wanted to show up and set a good example, and he talked about his work ethic every single day and how hard he competed every single game and how much he battled through injuries to just stay on the ice or to be able to play. And so the Connor McMichaels of the world, the Alexei Protas of the world, the Marty Fay-Arbys have watched that and learned from him and around Oshie, and that's where Oshie's impact as a player, the 2018 and all the things and playing 1,000 games, but he's going to have young players that are telling his story for years to come about how much they learned from Oshie.
It's a celebration of a great career, so obviously happy things, special things. I feel like, when he talks about, Nick and the kids, and that it kind of resonates with you as a father, and kind of in and out of those things as a player, like he talked about a lot, and I think also just happy that I wasn't giving a speech. I don't like public speaking, so that wouldn't be at the top of my list on things I wanted to do. But he did it really well. He's a good speaker, and kind of recapped a great career.
One of the things that stands out to me is being in Vancouver for game number 1,000, knowing what you were going through the day. And then hearing that celebration in the locker room may have been the loudest I've ever heard for a non-playoff game. What can you take and tell us about that day? Because I know how special reaching that milestone was to you.
Yeah, it was a tough one. We were in Vancouver, and so that's just a quick 2-hour drive for my family that's out in Seattle. And I knew everyone I'd already bought all the tickets, or the Caps had got them for me. Everyone was already on their way up, and I actually was tying my skates, and I felt something go up my back, and I was like, no, not today. Of all days, not today. I went out, did the laps, didn't even do one rep of a drill, and just got off the ice. There actually was a chiro in town that I had seen in the past when I had some back problems. I got referred to him from my guy in Minnesota, and I think it might have been a Saturday, so they're maybe supposed to be closed. He was in there doing some, work, and he ended up let me in, fixed me up. I didn't nap that day. I only did training all during the nap to get my body ready, and ended up making it through. So that cheer in the locker room was super special. Even the guys before the game, they're like, hey, you just got to do one play. You just got to go out for one shift. We'll carry you if we have to. So it was a special moment.
Once again, great stuff from an incredible event as TJ Oshie has officially announced his retirement. But it's been a big week for several people in the Capitals organization. Not only Oshie, but Spencer Carberry, the Jack Adams Award winner in just his second year as an NHL head coach, and the first to win Coach of the Year awards at the ECHL, AHL,
Amazing.
And now NHL levels. What can you say about that?
I love the fact that here's a guy who put in the time, who paid the dues, and had success at every rung along the way. Nothing was handed to him. In fact, when he was a rising star in the Capitals organization a few years ago, there was no room for him. He had to go to Toronto. So I think the Caps always kind of saw him as a guy who could be the leader of this organization, but it hasn't always been a straight line for him. He's had to really stick with it and grind it out. He had to do that as a player as well. Played Division III college hockey and then went to the ECHL. I mean, I love his story, and he's just the fourth Capitals head coach, in 50 years to win the Jack Adams. So kudos to him. And I'll be honest, I feel like he should have got more attention last year for the job he did getting that Capitals team to the playoffs, even though they got swept out of the playoffs by the Rangers. But then you look at the numbers from that year to this year. The improvement was just astounding in every single area. I don't think anyone was surprised that that Spencer walked away with the hardware. All apologies to Dean Evison and who else? Scott Arneal also had a great run with Winnipeg, and Marty St. Louis did a great job with the Canadiens. But this was, in my mind, for the last couple of months, it was Spencer's trophy to lose.
Well, a lot of good contenders, but like you said, rightfully so, it goes to Spencer Carberry. And Tarik, I want to touch on a point I believe you made on Twitter this week, because it's something that not everyone might realize. Us as a media corps, I just think Carberry has done an excellent job. You have some coaches that are maybe going to be more talkative than others, but the transparency, not just the kindness and respect that he treats us with, but when it comes to talking the game, the transparency he gives us as reporters really makes you feel like you are inside that locker room more than anyone else. And so just, again, not just showing his success with his players, but how he kind of treats everyone and how he goes about his business and the organization as a whole.
I've covered coaches who, kind of had run the gamut from barely saying anything to, the Bruce Boudreaux and the Spencer Carberrys of the world who tell you everything. And let me tell you, as a reporter, my job is to bring not only the news of the team, but also the different perspectives, what's going on behind the scenes, the stories of the players, of the coaches. You can't tell those stories accurately or with the level of detail that make them very interesting if the head coach isn't talkative at the podium, if he doesn't spend time with us off to the side, kind of steering us in right directions. And also, and I'll be honest, when the coach is talkative and transparent and open with the media, that sets the tone for the rest of the organization. The players then open up. When you're dealing with a coach who doesn't say a whole lot, the players don't say a whole lot either. And, we can still tell the stories, but not with the level of detail that the fans of this great team deserve. So, I made it a point to say, hey, congrats for the X's and O's and winning the Eastern Conference. But for us and for the fans, we appreciate your openness. It's such a big deal.
It's made a huge difference, and we talk so much about the success he has brought to the Washington Capitals. But back to my point from earlier, to win Coach of the Year awards at the ECHL, AHL, and now NHL level, it's hard to be able to be successful, one, but to be able to sustain that success and have it at every single level. How has he been able to do that?
I would say the thing that stands out to me, the attribute that probably puts him over the top, that separates him from other coaches, is his ability to communicate. Again, I've covered this league for over 20 years now, and I've covered coaches and also at the Hershey level and in the NHL. When they are able to communicate with their players and set expectations, that's all a professional athlete wants to know, is where he stands. And, coach, I only played 11 minutes last night. How do I get more? And there are coaches who maybe don't answer those questions, or don't feel it's important to deal with the rank and file of the guys at the bottom of the line. They cater to the stars. Spencer Carberry makes time for every single player. He did it with the Hershey Bears, because I got to cover that team a little bit, and he does it with the Capitals. And it doesn't matter if you're Alex Ovechkin or if you're Taylor Radish. You know where you stand with him. You know what you need to do better to get in the lineup, or to stay in the lineup, or to get some power play time, or to get some time on the PK. And it's those communication skills, for me, that sets him apart from everyone else.
Well, certainly just the beginning of his success, and I had the chance to sit down with Carberry earlier this week to talk about this award and much more. Well, Coach, thank you so much for joining us today in what has been a very exciting week for you and your family. Congratulations on officially being the Jack Adams Award winner. I know it's been a whirlwind, and we'll get to all of that, but I first want to start with your initial reaction to find out you had won this award, this honor, in just your second year as an NHL head coach.
Yeah, it was in the moment I was in shock and pretty speechless in that moment, and then you look at the award, the trophy, and just very, very humbling. You look at some of the names and some of the coaches that have won that award in the past, and then you start to think about just how grateful and fortunate I am to be in this organization, to be coaching this team, and it's a pretty incredible honor.
Well, it's not like you just found out with a simple phone call. We were just chatting off camera about the very special process that took place this week with family coming from all parts of the country, your kids presenting it to you. For those who haven't seen it yet, take us through how you found out that you'd won this.
Yeah, there were a lot of people in on it, so I've still got some conversations to have with them about keeping some, but it was good. Basically, I was under the impression that we were doing an end-of-the-year sort of segment at Monumental Sports downtown on air, and went to the studio, Joe B., and we were just sort of walking through some of the highlights of the season, some of my impressions of the season, and then I sort of turned, and there was a video playing that was more centered around the guys standing behind the bench and less with the players, and then I sort of knew something was up in it. Then the gentleman from the Hall of Fame came in with the Jack Adams Trophy, and my family, my kids, wife Casey, and then my dad, stepmom, mom, stepdad, my brother, in-laws, and that was pretty special. It just made the moment, and hearing that and all the emotions you go through them, but being able to hug your loved ones and sharing that special moment that I'll never forget.
Well, it's no question that you have built an excellent relationship with the players here, your staff here. I know the videos on social media after wins in the locker room with your speech are something that these fans love. But over the course of these 2 years as a head coach here, what do you credit building those relationships with and making them strong both on and off the ice?
Well, I think it's just something really when I was coming in here that this team has been so good and had such a strong foundation for so many years. The Stanley Cup winning team in 2018, the leadership group that was still here. So me coming in wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel or bring all these crazy ideas in that. It was more to just be myself and basically bring the group back together with a lot of different new pieces now, getting a little bit younger, some young players coming from Hershey, some players coming from some different organizations, and blending that in and bringing it to what was already here and what was already had been created. And I give our the last 2 years, the leadership and the core group that has been here for a long, long time, for them to accept me, want to be coached, and be totally bought into what we were trying to do, and them then to lead by example and go into the locker room and get everybody on the same page with how hard and how detailed we needed to play every night. So I'll be forever grateful to John Carlson, Tom Wilson, TJ Oshie, Nick Backstrom, because when I first came here, these were the guys that took our staff's messaging and how we wanted to play and all the things that we were going to ask guys to do on a daily basis. And some of it's really, really hard stuff, but it's required to maintain our standard. And those guys were instrumental, and they're essentially the reason why we've had some success the last couple of years.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it, and congratulations again.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you again to Spencer Carberry for joining me earlier this week. A great chat with him. And as you can see, we talked a lot about what's to come for the Capitals. It was an exciting season, success in so many different departments. But he said in that interview, you're never happy unless you're holding that Stanley Cup at the end of the season. So this team, this organization stays hungry. This is the time now, the front office, hockey ops, it's no summer vacation for them. No. They're hard at work trying to fit those pieces together for next year's team. And obviously a big event coming up with that is the NHL Draft in Los Angeles later this month. Capitals with a first-round pick. But Tarik, what do you think maybe they can do at that draft, or what's to come for the Capitals?
Well, it's going to be a busy offseason, but not quite as busy as last year. Last year, they totally remade the roster. I mean, they brought in 7 new players. They made some bold, maybe high-risk moves that actually ended up paying off, much to their credit. I call them high risk. They probably wouldn't agree. They'd probably say, oh, we knew those were going to work. This year, they're not going to be quite as busy in terms of rebuilding the roster. They're going to be kind of augmenting, kind of nibbling around the edges. They do have the opportunity and the cap space to go make a big move if they want to. But with the salary cap ceiling, Katie, going up $7.5 million, there are a lot of teams that didn't have the success that the Capitals had last year who are going to be looking to spend like drunken sailors, right? And so the Caps have to avoid getting into one of those bidding wars for someone that they like. They typically are able to stay away from that stuff, but they're going to have cap space. To me, I would say the biggest need for this team is kind of rebuilding that third line. They got 18 players coming back, but, Andrew Mangiapane, we don't know what's going to happen with him. Anthony Beauvillier, also a free agent. Lars Eller, also a free agent. There are a number, Taylor Radish, we don't know what's going to happen there. There are a number of key players that need to make decisions on. That said, there are going to be a number of players out there that they've already targeted that they go, that's the right guy. If we can make that work, and like I said, they're going to have the flexibility under the salary cap to go ahead and make those moves. So for me, it's going to be kind of getting a third line that is as strong as their first and second line. I think their fourth line's fine. I think their decore's fine. I think their goaltending is fine. It's that third line that kind of stands out to me. The thing that I'm wondering, and this is the fan in me, is, the prospect pool is so good now. I wonder if that might allow them to get a little, maybe dangle some of those picks that they have at the draft in a few weeks and try to maybe make a trade for a player who can help them on the third line. I'm sure the amateur scouting staff is sitting there going, no way. We need those picks. How do you think we improve that draft pool? But when your draft pool, according to The Athletic, it went from 20th to 9th in 1 year. Thanks to Ilya Protas and Cole Hudson and Ryan Leonard. So many good players took big steps forward this year in their prospect pipeline. So that's what I'm wondering is, are they going to be aggressive at the trade because they kind of have a little bit of cushion there?
Well, you talk a lot about that third line, and you and I were both at the press conference a few weeks ago when Chris Patrick and Brian McClellan both spoke, and they talked a lot about whether Connor McMichael plays wing or center is going to kind of determine some of what they do. But from that, they then spoke on they're looking to get younger, too. Like you mentioned, it's not an off-season where you have to go get 7 guys. You're going to have the majority of the team back, 2 or 3, a lot less load this year. But when they said that, does that maybe, you talk about those prospects. Do you have to go stress and grab people from other places, other organizations, when you do have guys? Andrew Crystal, we all saw the season he had.
Absolutely. I forgot about Andrew. Yeah.
What do you make of everything that's maybe in the organization already and what you could pull outside?
Katie, that's the fine line that they have to walk. And, that's the conversation between the pro scouting staff and the amateur scouting staff. And, where the Capitals are in their trajectory, management, McClellan and Patrick specifically, are going to have to say, okay, are we going to go for broke? I mean, we got to the second round. Do we feel like if we go all in here and make some big moves this summer to get a couple of big pieces to put us over the top, is that the right move? Or are we a little more conservative and add some depth pieces and spread that cap space around a little bit and save a spot for an Andrew Crystal or an Ivan Miroshnichenko? We haven't even talked about him yet. Or probably Ilya Protas is probably still another year or two away. But it's always that age-old question. Do you push all the chips to the middle of the table and say, we're going all in? Or do you say, okay, let's just keep trying to improve steadily and try to punch through one of these times? I mean, big picture, I felt like when Ovi was going into the final year of his contract, we were going to be, there's a long, cold winter coming for this team. Not anymore. Not anymore. This team is going to be good for the long term. You look at their core players. They're all signed for a number of years. This team's going to be around.
A lot to look forward to. The season will be here before we know it. But once again, appreciate you joining us today. I am Katie Florio. That is Tarik El-Bashir. And thank you again for watching this edition of Rink Report, sponsored by Penn Fed Credit Union. Great rates for everyone.